On June 18, 1815, a muddy field in Belgium became the graveyard of Napoleon's empire, where strategy, betrayal, and sheer grit decided the fate of Europe. This is the untold story of Waterloo, stripped bare to reveal why the greatest military genius of his age fell for the last time. In 1815, Europe was a powder keg. Napoleon Bonaparte, exiled to Elba after his disastrous Russian campaign, had clawed his way back to power in France. The 100 Days, they called it, an audacious return that sent shockwaves through monarchies. But on a rain-soaked plain near Waterloo, his ambition would crash against an Allied force led by the Duke of Wellington and Marshal Blücher. This isn't just a story of cannons and cavalry. It's about missteps, mistrust, and moments that changed history. Let's set the stage. Napoleon at 45 was no longer the invincible Corsican who'd reshaped Europe. His health was failing, rumors of stomach cancer swirled, and his army, though loyal, was a shadow of its former glory. He faced a coalition of British, Dutch, Belgian, and Prussian troops, united by one goal: to crush the emperor before he could reignite his empire. The odds? Napoleon's 73,000 men against an Allied force swelling to over 100,000 by day's end. Why Waterloo? Napoleon needed a quick victory to fracture the coalition. He chose to strike at Wellington's Anglo-Dutch army before Blücher's Prussians could join them. Split the enemy, defeat them piecemeal, that was his plan. But the ground was a quagmire from torrential rains, bogging down his artillery and slowing his famed lightning attacks. Timing was everything, and Napoleon was already behind. June 18th dawns. Napoleon delays his attack until 11 a.m., hoping the ground will dry. Mistake number one. Every hour gives Blücher's Prussians time to march closer. His plan is simple. Pound Wellington's center with artillery, then smash through with infantry and cavalry. But Wellington, a master of defensive warfare, has chosen his ground wisely, ridges and slopes that shield his troops. Napoleon underestimates him, calling him a sepoy general from his India campaigns. Arrogance? Maybe. The battle begins with a diversion. Napoleon sends his brother Jerome to attack Hougoumont, a fortified farmhouse on Wellington's right. It's meant to draw reserves, but it becomes a bloodbath. Thousands of French troops are tied up in a sideshow, wasting men and time. Napoleon's generals, like Soult, urge caution, but he brushes them off. Wellington is a bad general, he snaps. This will be a picnic. Midday, the Grand Battery 80 French cannons unleashes hell. Shells tear into Wellington's lines, but his troops hunker down behind ridges. The French infantry, led by d'Erlon's corps, surges forward. It's a massive assault, 18,000 men strong, but it's poorly coordinated. British volleys and a daring cavalry charge shred the attack. D'Erlon's men flee, leaving 3,000 dead or wounded. Napoleon's frustration grows. He's losing momentum. Then, a fatal blow looms. Blücher's Prussians are spotted on the horizon. Napoleon had sent Marshal Grouchy with 33,000 men to keep them at bay. But Grouchy's nowhere near. Was it betrayal? Incompetence? The truth is murkier. Grouchy followed orders to chase the Prussians after their defeat at Ligny 2 days earlier, but he misread their movements. Napoleon's vague instructions didn't help. Either way, Grouchy's absence left a gap the Prussians now exploit. By afternoon, Napoleon's desperate. He throws Marshal Ney, his bravest of the brave, into the fray. Ney leads massive cavalry charges against Wellington's center, thousands of horsemen thundering across the mud. But without infantry support, they're doomed. Wellington's troops form squares, bristling with bayonets, and mow down the cavalry. Ney's recklessness costs 2,000 horses and riders. Napoleon, watching from a distance, curses. "That man is ruining me," he mutters. The truth behind Waterloo's turning point lies in these failures. Napoleon's reliance on subordinates like Ney and Grouchy, once brilliant, now faltered under pressure. His own health and overconfidence clouded his judgment. Meanwhile, Wellington's cool-headedness and Blücher's relentless march turned the tide. The Prussians slam into Napoleon's right flank by 4 p.m., forcing him to divert troops. The noose tightens. At dusk, Napoleon makes his final gamble, the Imperial Guard, his elite reserve, unbeaten in battle. They march toward Wellington's center, a last hope to break through. But Wellington's hidden troops rise from the ridges, unleashing volleys. The Guard falters, then breaks, an unthinkable sight. French morale collapses. Sauve qui peut. Every man for himself rips through the ranks. Napoleon flees, his empire in tatters. Waterloo wasn't just a battle lost, it was the end of an era. Napoleon's defeat exiled him to St. Helena, where he'd die 6 years later. But the truth isn't simple. It wasn't just Wellington's genius or Blücher's tenacity. It was Napoleon's own hubris, his generals' blunders and the mud of a Belgian field that conspired against him. Europe exhaled, but at a cost. 70,000 dead, or Waterloo reshaped the world. It cemented British dominance, paved the way for a century of relative peace, and buried the revolutionary ideals Napoleon carried. Yet his shadow looms large. His Code Napoleon, his vision of a unified Europe, still echo. Waterloo wasn't just his defeat, it was the moment the world chose stability over upheaval. So what's the truth behind Napoleon's final defeat? It's a story of human flaws, pride, miscommunication, and bad luck colliding on a rainy field. Napoleon, the man who conquered nations, couldn't conquer himself, and that, more than any cannon or cavalry charge, sealed his fate at Waterloo. June 18, 1815 wasn't just a battle. It was the day the world turned its back on a titan. Waterloo's truth is this: even giants fall when they misjudge the ground beneath them. Subscribe to my history channel for more untold stories where giants rise, stumble, and shape the world.